August 1965. Lyndon B. Johnson is the 36th President of these United States. The West African country of Gambia breaks free of UK colonization. Malcolm X is assassinated mid-speech in the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem. The Vietnam War is raging abroad as many Americans stateside are enraged. The bloody Selma to Montgomery protest marches in early spring lead to the passage of the Voting Rights Act on August 6th of that year. Now, just 2 days before the signing of that landmark legislation, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as part of his 4-city Freedom Now tour, brought his message of gratitude and empowerment to black neighborhoods in Philadelphia, speaking on August 4th, 1965, at the Baptist Temple. Here's a bit of what he said there.
You want me to outline them for you? Number one, Negroes in Philadelphia live in segregated housing conditions, just like Negroes in the South. And whenever you segregate a minority, you can discriminate against that minority. The minute you segregate a man, you have the key in your hand that will open the door to discrimination. And so when you get people off in ghettos, what happens? You give them the worst houses, and they pay higher rent for those houses than other people. Now you know that housing problem brings about another problem. It messes up our schools. You know, it's a strange thing about life. God made it that way, Lord. I'm glad He did. He put an interrelated structure in reality. You can't hold the man down in the valley without staying down there with him to keep him there.
Now, brothers and sisters, Baptist Temple, the venue where Dr. King was speaking in 1965, Baptist Temple first opened its doors at 1837 Broad Street in 1891 under the leadership of Pastor Russell Herman Conwell, who was originally from South Worthington, Massachusetts, and who had been pastor of that church since 1882, when its congregants gathered at their former location under the name of Grace Baptist Church of Philadelphia. Now, when Pastor Conwell arrived in 1882, he began holding evening classes for the working poor in that North Philly neighborhood, tutoring eager students from throughout the community in the church basement with the goal of giving, quote, education to those who were unable to get it through the usual channels, end quote. Now, these after-work classes became extremely popular in the mid-1880s, putting Grace Baptist Church of Philadelphia on the local map in a big way, eventually becoming what we would call today a megachurch. And on May 12, 1888, some 6 years after Russell Herman Conwell became pastor, and largely because of his by that time famous evening tutoring, by mandate of the church's board of trustees, those evening classes became Temple College of Philadelphia, and we know it today as Temple University. The venue where Dr. King spoke that August day in 1965 is now known as the Temple Performing Arts Center. And all of that brothers and sisters, brings us to Og Mandino's 1982 book, University of Success, and to Lesson 10, How to Grow and Prosper in Your Own Acre of Diamonds. How to Grow and Prosper in Your Own Acre of Diamonds. The phrase Acre of Diamonds is taken from a now famous speech presented by Russell Herman Conwell over 6,000 times during his lifetime. It was largely the speaking fees received from presenting this speech throughout the country and all over the world that fueled the early growth and expansion of what is now Temple University. Russell Conwell's guiding thought for this lesson 10 at the University of Success is this: many of us spend our lives searching for success when it is usually so close that we can reach out and touch it. One more again. Many of us spend our lives searching for success when it is usually so close that we can reach out and touch it. Mr. Russell Herman Conwell's guiding thought for this lesson 10, which is titled How to Grow and Prosper in Your Own Acre of Diamonds. How to Grow and Prosper in Your Own Acre of Diamonds. That's today's lesson, taken from Russell Conwell's famous speech titled Acres of Diamonds. In his introduction to this lesson, author Og Mandino writes, "The lecture you are about to hear is one of the all-time classic pieces of success material. First delivered at a reunion of his old Civil War comrades, Russell H. Conwell went on to give the speech, Acres of Diamonds, more than 5,000 times to enthralled audiences across the nation, earning for his efforts several $1 million, with which he founded Temple University," end quote. And here's what Russell Conwell says in his own introduction to his Acres of Diamonds lecture. Quote, "This lecture has been delivered under these circumstances. I visit a town or city and try to arrive there early enough to see the postmaster, the barber, the keeper of the hotel, the principal of the schools, and the ministers of some of the churches, and then go into some of the factories and stores and talk with the people and get into sympathy with the local conditions of that town or city and see what has been their history, what opportunities they had, and what they had failed to do. And every town fails to do something. And then go to the lecture and talk to those people about the subjects which applied to their locality. The idea is that in this country of ours, everyone has the opportunity to make more of himself in his own environment, with his own skill, with his own energy, and with his own friends," end quote. That was Mr. Russell Herman Conwell introducing this lecture, number 10, titled How to Grow and Prosper in Your Own Acre of Diamonds, taken from Og Mandino's 1982 book, The University of Success. So let's get into it.
In the year 1843, a man was born who, during his lifetime, was to have a profound effect on millions of people. His name was Russell Herman Conwell. He became a lawyer, then a newspaper editor, and finally a clergyman. Well, one day, a group of boys came to Dr. Conwell at his church and asked him if he would be willing to instruct them in college courses. They wanted a college education, but lacked the money to pay for it. He told them that he'd do all he could, and as the boys left, a thought, an idea began to form in Dr. Conwell's mind. He asked himself, why couldn't there be a fine college for poor but deserving young men? Well, here was a great idea, and he went to work on it at once. Almost single-handedly, Dr. Conwell raised $7 million with which he founded one of the world's leading universities. And he raised the money by giving more than 6,000 lectures all over the country, and in each one of them, he told the story called Acres of Diamonds. The story was the account of an African farmer who heard tales about other settlers who had made millions by discovering diamond mines. And these tales so excited the farmer that he could hardly wait to sell his farm and search for diamonds himself. So he sold his farm and spent the rest of his life wandering the vast African continent, searching unsuccessfully for the gleaming gems which brought such high prices on the markets of the world. Finally, in a fit of despondency, broke and desperate, as I remember the story, he threw himself into a river and drowned. Now, meanwhile, the man who had bought his farm one day found a large and unusual stone in a stream which cut through the property. And the stone turned out to be a great diamond of enormous value. And he then discovered that the farm was covered with them, and it was to become one of the world's richest diamond mines. The first farmer had owned literally acres of diamonds, but had sold them for practically nothing in order to look for them elsewhere. If he'd only taken the time to study and prepare himself, to learn what diamonds looked like in their rough state, and had first thoroughly explored the land he owned, he would have found the millions he sought right on his own property. The thing about this story that so profoundly affected Dr. Conwell and subsequently millions of others was the idea that each of us is, at this moment, standing in the middle of his own acres of diamonds. If we will only have the wisdom and patience to intelligently and effectively explore the work in which we're now engaged, we'll usually find that it contains the riches we seek, whether they be financial or intangible or both. There's nothing more pitiful to my mind than the person who wastes his life running from one thing to another, forever looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and never staying with one thing long enough to find it. No matter what your goal may be, perhaps the road to it can be found in the very thing in which you're now engaged. You see, the average man believes some businesses are better than others, instead of realizing the truth that there are no bad businesses. There are just those people who don't know enough to see the opportunities in the work they're in. No matter what our work happens to be, it's our business. We're the manager. If there seems to be no future or opportunity in it, it isn't always because it's not there, but perhaps only because we can't see it. A farmer once poked a tiny pumpkin into an empty jug. The pumpkin grew until it completely filled the jug and could grow no more. When the farmer broke the glass, he had a pumpkin exactly the size and shape of the jug. If we're not careful, each of us can do a similar thing. We can mistakenly poke ourselves into jugs that limit our growth. But it is we who do the poking, not the job, not the company, nor the territory, nor the economy, nor the times. We do it. People who become outstanding at their work are those who see their work as an opportunity for growth and development, and who prepare themselves for the opportunities which surround them every day. Preparation is the key. This means becoming so good, so competent at what we're now doing, we will actually force the opportunities we seek to come our way. It takes imagination, creative imagination, to know that diamonds don't look like diamonds in their rough state, nor does a pile of iron ore look like iron or steel. Great opportunities lurk constantly in every aspect of the work in which we now find ourselves. In order to begin prospecting your acres of diamonds, start to develop a faculty called intelligent objectivity, the ability to stand off and look at your job as a stranger might, a stranger who considers your pasture greener than his own. To do this, start at the beginning. Within the framework of what industry or profession does your job fall? Do you know all you can know about your industry? How did it begin? Why did it begin? Who started it and when? What's your industry's annual dollar volume? How fast has it grown during the past 20 years? What's its projected growth during the next 10 years? In short, start now to become a student of your industry. You'll be amazed at the results. In 5 years or less, you can become a national expert in your field. And it's the experts who write their own tickets in life. Surveys indicate that the great majority of people seem to look at their jobs as being as far as they can go, as the end of the line. They need to realize how really desperately an expanding and dynamic industry needs and seeks the uncommon person who is prepared to share in its growth, how richly it will reward this person of vision and action. On the other hand, Those who are not preparing and growing are not just standing still. In relation to their industry, they're going backwards. So ask yourself, do I know as much about my job and my industry as a good doctor or lawyer knows about his job, his profession? You should, you know. This is the attitude of the person who wants to become a professional at what he does for a living. It's far more fun, many times more rewarding and interesting, and the real pro can ride out occasional storms in the economic seas in a safe boat built of research and preparation. In order to become a professional in a world of amateurs, we need to study three important subjects. One, our company and the industry in which it operates. Two, our job and perhaps the next step upward in our career. And three, we need to study people, since successfully serving and getting along with people will determine our success or failure. These are three subjects on which you can gradually build a fine home library. Your bookstore clerk will help you find the right books if you'll tell him what you want to know. Frequently, all you need in order to make an enormous improvement is simply a reminder of things you've known but have forgotten. Perhaps this study and research in your job, your industry, and ways of increasing your service to others sounds like a big job. Well, it is. But it's fascinating, and in the long run, it pays tremendous dividends, builds complete security, and it can be accomplished in an hour a day devoted to reading and making permanent notes. Think of ways and means by which you can increase your contribution to your company, your industry, and those whom you serve. You'll begin to notice a wonderful change in your world, for as ye sow, so shall ye reap. This applies just as much to the family as it does to the breadwinner. The minute you adopt this attitude, you've joined the top 5% of the people of the world. You've virtually removed all competition. You're creating rather than competing. You're affecting life rather than just being affected by it. You're becoming a creator and a giver to life instead of just a receiver. By taking this attitude toward your work, your company, and industry, you're automatically taking care of two vital parts of successful living. First, you'll find yourself becoming more interested and enthusiastic about your work and its future, and both interest and enthusiasm are contagious. And second, you're building financial security which will last a lifetime. So keep this thought in mind as often as you can on and off the job. Somewhere in your present work, there lurks an opportunity which will bring you everything you could possibly want for yourself and your family. It will not be labeled opportunity. It will be hidden in common, everyday garments, just as was the hairpin with which a man fashioned the first paperclip, or the dirty drinking glass which triggered the paper cup industry. Now, in closing, here are 12 points to remember. One, if we'll develop the wisdom and patience to intelligently and effectively explore the work in which we're now engaged, we will very likely find it contains the riches, tangible and intangible, we seek. Two, before we go running off into what we think are greener pastures, let's realize our own pasture is probably unlimited. Three, there are no bad jobs. It's the way in which we go about our work that makes it good or bad. Four, let's not poke ourselves into jugs beyond which we cannot grow. Let's avoid self-limitation. Five, only preparation can ensure our taking advantage of the opportunities which will present themselves in the future, opportunities which are around us now. Let's begin to prepare now. Six, put your imagination to work on the many ways and means of improving what you're now doing. Seven, learn all you can about your job, your company, and your industry. Eight, since there's no limit to the growth of your industry, it must follow there's similarly no limit to your growth potential within that industry. Nine, our dynamic and growing economy needs and will well reward the uncommon person who prepares for a place in its growth. 10, begin to build your library of reference material pertaining to your company, industry, job, and on how to better serve and get along with people. 11, set aside an hour a day for this study and research. 12, remember the story of the Acres of Diamonds.